Are you so ready to live in the flow, be abundant, have a joyful life? But the truth is, if you're going to be really honest with yourself, maybe, obviously, you have a lot of resistance to the very thing you want. My name's Sonia Choquette. This week, we're going to be talking about resistance to your inner guidance, resistance to your abundant abilities, to your power to create, and how to overcome that. If you're new to my channel, welcome, welcome. I think your spirit brought you here, so I hope that you get something out of it. And if you're back again, like we meet every week, welcome back. Today, let's talk about resistance. Now, the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I just got back from Tallinn, Estonia, where I taught a workshop up there for a big conference. And I was teaching people on how to use their intuition, how to get in the flow, how to use it to manifest, how it works. And yet, I ran into a lot of resistance. And so it bears worth talking about. So do you have resistance? Do you find that you're trying harder than heck to create something, to be abundant, to make connections, to have relationships that really see you and support you, and get into a life where you can really follow your inner guidance, make quick decisions, and not waste time second guessing? Well, that's pretty much a great deal of humanity. In fact, I was teaching a workshop, and in one of the experiences of the workshop, my intuition guided me to choose a man and have him come up on stage. He was sitting by himself. He was very quiet, smiling and leaning in. But when I brought him up on stage, he was surprised, and I asked him, "What do you want more than anything in the world?" And he said, "Well, what I've been saying for months and months and months is I just want to be really seen." And I said, "Well, you just manifested it. You're sitting in front of 1,000 people who are very available to really see you, to really accept and appreciate you. So tell them who you are. Tell them what you love. Tell them about you. Tell them what you want to be seen." He couldn't do it. All of a sudden, it got in his head. He started sort of talking about unmeaningful things. He started being very inauthentic. He kind of sabotaged himself right in front of everybody. And I said, "This is your resistance. Can you see? You just manifested, just pulled yourself right up here. You have 1,000 people in a very positive, loving audience is clapping for you, wants to meet you, and you sabotage it." That is classic resistance. And I asked him, "What are you afraid of?" And he said, "I'm afraid people won't like me." And I said, "Well, what people? Look at the people right in front of you. Is there anybody in this audience giving you the stink eye? Is there anybody here glaring at you with judgment?" And he couldn't even look. His eyes were kind of blank. He's looking, but he wasn't really seeing anyone in front of him. And I said, "The people you're talking to are in your head and in the past. But at the same time, you just created exactly what you want. You have to create room to receive it." So it was a struggle, but he finally got there. And he finally let people experience him, and to which he got a standing ovation. That is how the universe will respond when you let yourself stop resisting and actually receive what it is you want. So how do we do that? And what about how much resistance are we in and why? I had another experience over the same weekend where I had a beautiful dinner with one of my favorite people on the planet who had been going through quite a challenge. First, a cancer challenge, which she had overcome, but that led her to an even bigger challenge, which is a real clear awareness that she wanted to change her life, including her partnership, including the work she did, including even where she lived. It was monumental urge for change, to the point where she was teary and and really yearning for a change. But when we actually talked about the various ways her intuition had actually been guiding her, making suggestions, even bringing her people who would be supportive to help her reinvent herself, start a new path, maybe begin some brand new personal business of her own, maybe move from where she lived in Estonia to a warmer climate. Every single thing we discussed, she brought up resistance. I can't do that. I'm not ready. That won't work. To the point that I said, well, what I can see is that you want to consider it right now, but you're not ready for any of this to happen. So let's talk about that. What in that resistance is important to acknowledge? You can't just barrel through it, because resistance is like a door you keep pushing on, except it opens inward. So I'm a big believer that our resistance is protecting something that we want or feel we must protect. And until we feel safe enough to make a change and safe enough to receive good things, we're not going to. So we talked about what she needed to feel safe. And for her, really boiled down to the unpredictable of starting a new life. Didn't feel safe, even though she had a job she didn't like and a partner that frustrated her. The predictability of it left her feeling financially secure. So, okay, that means the next step, because the definition of success is do the next thing. The next step maybe wouldn't be to up and move to a foreign country and start your own business with no real financial backing. Maybe the next step is just to get a part-time job in the business that you're interested in and get an experience of that. Get an experience and see if it is actually something you resonate with. I think the biggest reason we have resistance to so much is we jump so far ahead, we can't imagine it. In my book, Your Heart's Desire, Creating the Life You Really Want, which is a very good book, by the way, because it really breaks these steps down to very doable, practical steps that will lead you to success. The step number 3 is imagine what you want, because you cannot create what you cannot imagine. And a great deal of our resistance is creating something that we having experience and trying to imagine it being for us. Even the fellow that was on my stage who created being seen, he couldn't imagine being safely seen, even though there were 1,000 people in that audience, probably who had the same desire and therefore were very generous and willing to see him with so much love. He missed it because in his mind, that he couldn't imagine that existed. So when we have resistance, let's look at what we're protecting and what fear we have and what we're protecting. And can we imagine that a change is okay? It's a change that is safe. I had a fellow who said he wanted to meet someone, and really his life partner was 39. He said, I'm ready. I want a family. I want a wife. I want kids. I want the whole thing. And he met someone at a yoga retreat who was 43, just slightly older, had the same interests, had a lot of chemistry, and it went really, really well. But the minute he got back, he called me. I said, I need an emergency reading. Everything about this is so good. I don't believe it. Something's going to go wrong. He was so resistant to the idea that this could actually work out. And so I would take him back to, it's change. What about change scares you? And the second thing about resistance is that you have one identity, and that's what has to change. He had the identity of of a 39-year-old guy who was really frustrated, the identity of someone who was looking and looking and looking. He couldn't imagine the identity of being loved. So I said, take marriage and take commitments off the table and just put getting to know someone. Can you imagine that? Not, is this going to fit my big dream, but is just this someone I can enjoy in my life? Just, that's it. And he said that he could imagine that. So all of a sudden, all that resistance stopped. And when he stopped trying to make it the big dream and just made it someone I enjoyed, he quit fighting it because he could imagine making new friends. He had a lot of women friends, a lot. And he said, she might just end up being one of my more women friends, but I love my women friends. And it turned out that after dating 9 months and going back and forth as just friends, he relaxed and he said, I really can see us together. So part of it is give it time. We took time to get entrenched in the holes that we're in. We may need a little time to move into a new idea of who we are, even though I have to say, the minute there is no resistance, the experience happens. Now, don't get frustrated with your resistance. It's trying to protect you in some way. So think about what it is your resistance feels so called to protect. Like, for example, I have a woman I was talking to. She was actually a makeup artist who was doing the makeup while I was at an event recently. And she said, I really have a strong intuition to go spend some time in Thailand and maybe Bali and even Sri Lanka. She said, I'm nearly obsessed with it. But every time I actually think about taking that step, I stop. I'm afraid. I won't let myself do this. And she said, it's been 2 years. So many of my friends have come and gone and spent many months there and had such life-changing experiences. But I won't let myself, even though every cell in my body tells me that's what I want to do. So we talked about her resistance. Her resistance wasn't change. Her resistance was being alone. That was her resistance. She said, actually, if I'm really going to go down to it, I am afraid that I would be so lonely and so shy and so scared that I wouldn't meet anybody and I would just have to come back. So once she named what she was afraid of, I said, well, why don't you start by going with a group, like for a week or two, even though you want to stay longer. That way, that was just one suggestion. Just there's lots of groups and lots of people looking for travel companions. She said, I never thought about that. I didn't know that existed. So now someone else might think, duh, but she truly didn't know. So we'll see. But she was very excited after we did the video, and she came up and said, I'm going to do that. I really feel like now I'm going to go. I'm going to do it now. She was so effervescent and so full of excitement. So when you have resistance, rather than being frustrated, pardon me, I have a cold, and just trying to barrel through it, remember, it's a door you're pushing on that opens inward. You need to step back and you need to examine. For example, the classic is abundance. Now, when people say they want to create abundance, I'm always one to say, well, that's a word. What does that word mean to you? Because it might be just a word that doesn't have any real feeling, and you might just have a resistance to the word because it doesn't really speak to what you're trying to create. So I was talking with a group of students, and they started saying, actually, I'm not sure what abundance means. I want more money than I can spend. I want to buy good clothes. I want to be able to travel. I said, then narrow it down to what experience you would love next. That will give you the abundance experience instead of just the generic abundance, which may not mean much to your emotional body. I had one client say, okay, I've been asking for abundance because I want to travel. I really want to take a trip. And she said, frankly, I'd love to travel in style. I said, just instead of abundance, can you just imagine playfully what traveling in style would actually look like for you? And just imagine it without any pressure to create it or not create it, but just to imagine it, because heart's desire, creating the life you really want. Principle number 3, you cannot create what you cannot imagine. So she started imagining. I suggested that she make a vision board. So she had like first class seat and, the flight attendant with the champagne and the hot towel, and she had the top level suitcase, and she had 5-star hotel, and just things like beautiful images of restaurants. And she said, this to me would be a vacation worth taking. Well, lo and behold, maybe a couple months later, her college roommate reached out to her and she said, I work for Sony, and they hadn't been in close touch, friendly touch, but she said, I just got an all-expense paid trip to do a business trip to Japan, and I am allowed to take a partner, and I don't have a partner, and I don't know anybody who's even available, but this is too good to be true. Do you want to go on a 5-star trip to Tokyo? She was like flabbergasted. Absolutely. And I have 2 weeks vacation. I can go. So off they went. They were fun roommates in college. It was a wonderful experience, and it didn't cost her a thing. So we resist where we cannot imagine or where we're afraid of change. We resist trusting our intuition, like the gentleman who met his beautiful partner, but then got resistance about the changes it involved. So just break it down to bite sizes and what you can work with right now. What are you trying to protect right now, or where are you struggling right now? If you have no resistance, you're going to create the experience. And resistance is really a mirroring to us of where our imagination, beliefs, and ideas are. And if we can just bite-size some of those goals and get them to be more immediate and meaningful and imaginable, then you're going to keep moving along. I had a client who was just looking for a pair of beautiful, she said, I need yellow satin shoes for a wedding dress, and I don't have any money for the ones that the bride who has invited me to be in her wedding asked me to buy. So I have all kinds of resistance, resentment for her, resistance to spending that money, resistance to who wants yellow shoes. And I said, well, make it a game. You give yourself permission to say, no, I can't do that. So that would be A. And then give yourself 2 weeks, because the wedding is really in 6 months. Give yourself 2 weeks to play the game of, I wonder where yellow satin shoes are that I can afford. So it's not an I have to create this or pushing past your imagination. It's a playful invitation. I wonder where I'm going to find yellow satin shoes I can afford. So she's off to the mall one day, just helping her daughter find whatever, thing she needs for the weekend or distraction for the weekend. And she's dropped her daughter off, walking back to the car, sees a discount shoe store, goes in, and she finds yellow satin shoes in her size, in a low heel for $29. She said they were just as, who's looking at your feet anyway at the wedding, but they were just as lovely as the ballet shoes that were $300 that my brides had asked me to get. So when I took a picture and showed them to her, she said, sure, they're beautiful. I didn't tell her the price. I didn't tell her where they were. I just said, I found shoes that'll work for me. Well, these work for you. Bam, vibrationally attracted to one another, because she had already decided that she could say no to the wedding. So resistance is about giving yourself the place, the space, the movement, the imagination to not feel forced, to not be pushed beyond your imagination, to be more playful, to adjust more easily, to relax into an experience and take it in bite sizes. Try this yourself. Write in the comments what you've been in resistance to. Then try some of these easing into, imagining little bite-sized movement forward, and let me know if it shifts for you. Sometimes when you can just shift a little resistance, a huge dream comes in very quickly. And here's the final word. Always be willing to be surprised. The biggest resistance we have is our assumptions that what is possible is what we know. And what we know is what we know as of yesterday or this morning. Things are changing all the time. So if you're willing to be surprised, and the way to do that is to say, I don't know how it's going to happen, but I'm willing to be surprised. I'm really, truly available for a good surprise. So try that too. Are you truly available for a good surprise? I can tell you when you are, they're going to start happening like popcorn popping when they are ready to come through and you have no resistance. So make it playful, make it a game. You can't push a door outward and it steps inward and it flows inward. So step back and let that flow in. Be curious, wonder, have fun with it instead of beating yourself up and trying to fight against yourself because you won't succeed. And it isn't necessary. Just ease into it and resistance will ease out. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving me a thumbs up or better yet, subscribe and join me again next week. Sending you all my love. Talk to you next week, everyone. Bye.